And you'll never be able to conclusively prove either way.
Yeah, can I ask a question now or later? One of the things I was discussing actually just last week was that you say that God said that this is the best way to do it. Even if it's not the best way to do it, this is the way that God said. So if there ever comes a time when there is such a thing as proof that the animal is feels less pain if it's bolted or in any other way, then there'll be a legitimate argument against shechita in this sense. So how would you justify or explain?
Well, halacha is not based on science.
No, that's what I mean.
That's what I told the people of the RSPC as well.
And how do they take that?
Well, you'll never be able to conclusively be able to prove anything because animals. King Solomon talked to animals. We can only assume based on the way that the brain responds and based on electrodes put in specific places. Why am I telling you all this? Because I believe that we're holding shechita together in Australia on a hair. In other words, at any time somebody could come up and create, and that's what we don't want it in the newspaper. We try to avoid conflict, we try to avoid everything. Many years ago they weren't even studying the animals at all. Ideally we have to put up, and in Kashrut in general, often we have to put up with the b'diavad situation. What does that mean? Now, just to introduce the concept of b'diavad, this is the Shulchan Aruch that I learned when I was in yeshiva against Mincha. I learned the various halachas in Kashrut. And my study partner and I spent quite a bit of time together learning. It was very interesting. I'm not going to say who said what. But we're having a discussion, we were learning, and every single thing that we learned, we disagreed. We had passionate argument about. Why? Because there are two fundamental approaches to halacha and kashrut in specific. Number one approach is, what is the best case scenario? What should I be doing? How can I enhance my kashrut experience? How can I have food that is... The second one is, what can we get away with? And in understanding the question about what can we get away with, I think the approach to that is very much driven by the kosher consumer and identifying who this kosher consumer is and what they want.
When you say what you can get away with, is that how, I mean, I sort of know the answer, but just so that you can explain, how strict is that in a halachic sense?
Well, again, there are various different terms that are used in situations. For example, shas hatat, which means a time of great pressure. There's kesar and kis, you're going to lose money if you don't do it. And when money, there is hefsed meruba if you'll have a great loss. There are various, there's b'diavad, there's lachatchila, there are various different terms that are used in halacha. So when somebody's looking to put food into their mouth, and I think often what comes out of our mouth is just as if not more important what goes into our mouth. So kashrut is about being careful what goes in, but also got to be careful what comes out. And when you talk about what goes in, what is the kosher consumer's demands and requirements? And if you look across the world, there are various different standards of sharing. You have mahadrin, mina mahadrin, there is edech haredus, there is rabbanut, and of course, like you have the deserted island with a fellow who falls there, and he creates this whole town for himself, and they come along, they find two shuls, there has to be the shul that you don't go to. Okay, and there's a hefsher you won't eat from, or there's a thing that you won't do, and that's a reality. The problem with that is that unfortunately this creates a lot of animosity within the community. Because if I will say to somebody, so I want to eat at your house because I have a different standard of kashrut, they will take that very personally, and they will say, therefore, what you're telling me is that I'm not kosher. And therefore, you're telling me that you're better than I am. But I look at you and I see what you do. And I'll take you back to the story that happened with the Alter Rebbe. There were three things the Alter Rebbe, first Chabad Rebbe actually, his chidushim, that he instituted, that the whole world didn't accept, but he pushed them very strongly. One of those was the sakin shel shechita, the knife of shechita. And it's called sakinim ulutoshim, a thin, honed out knife, and this was his chidush. And there were people who swore black and blue against it. And he persevered, and today the entire world in shechita follows his directives in this area. But he did tell his Hasidim, when it first came out, he said, I don't want you not to eat at somebody's house because they're eating meat that was usually not one of these knives. Because that will create animosity, that will create hatred.
How did they say?
Very passionate. And that was his directive. At the end of the day, they accepted that directive. Okay, so in other words, we need to be very careful when it comes to these issues, because There's kashrut and there's personal standards, but there's also an importance of being able to not create hatred and to create chavashat and avas Yisrael and not sinah. And we know in the Jewish community it's not hard for there to be an environment of us versus them as opposed to kolon v'yachad altogether. And therefore our attitude always has to be to be open-minded, but not so much so that our brains fall out. We need to be open-minded and accepting, but of course one will not eat a piece of pork in somebody's house as not to offend them. We have to have standards, we have to have things, lines that we don't step over, but we also need to be sensitive to the issues, and that's why Torah tells us, and when it comes to halacha, there is Torah, but there is also rabbinic institution, rabbinic law, and the Torah tells you must respect, and according to many opinions, we have to treat the decisions of rabbis stricter than we would, because with Torah there's no room to play around. The Torah says as a chazir, the pig is not to be eaten, there's no discussion. The rabbis might turn around and say something, and we start to, I don't like this rabbi, I don't trust his ruling, I don't like this. We need to be very, very careful when it comes to this. Torah tells us, but there's also the importance of making sure that we choose and we follow people. This is part of the challenge, I think, that whom we respect, that we understand, will provide a genuine product. Coming back to the challenges of kashrut in Australia, I'm going back to shechita because I believe fundamentally as item number one on the list is that we are fortunate to be able to have maintained this position, but from time to time it comes up on the agenda and it comes under attack. And what's happened in New Zealand, and I think we should all be together lobbying and rallying behind the cause to support what's going on in New Zealand, because it's not too far across the ocean for them to come and apply the same principles that they've got away. There are people, now there are some people who genuinely have animal welfare issues at heart. Maybe they don't understand, maybe they've got genuine concerns. There are other people who have other ulterior motives in mind. And for us to have chas v'sholom, then would be a disaster.
You've got about different levels of kashrut about the compromise you have to make about standing afterwards or whatever. I don't think you interrupt yourself.
Yeah. Okay. It's a very complicated concept, and it's been discussed across the world. For example, Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, they will not accept meat from Australia because of the stunning process. In Israel, other places, they don't actually do that. They won't accept our meat. They do certain productions where this doesn't occur, but the reality is, if you look in Shulchan Aruch, in the first instance, you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to go shooting an animal. What's the problem? I don't understand the details. I can give you the details. What's the problem behind? What's the point? The point is because once you have shot the animal, it stops jumping around so much.
But you said that it's so instantaneous that...
Okay, so if you want me to explain to you, I wasn't going to get into detail. People are eating lunch. People are eating lunch.
You can talk about it.
But the reality is that we only feel pain as long as we are conscious. When the person is unconscious, they don't feel pain. That's the reality. That's why you can give a person an injection, put them on the operating table, and for hours and hours and hours, they won't feel a thing, and they won't remember. They won't remember anything. Sorry,
Baruch Adler was a shochet, in fact, he was a shochet for a number of years in Perth, and he said when the RSPCA came down to him to check it, he is the Goisha shochet, whatever you call him, shechted animals with the RSPCA and then slit the animal's heart to feel the beat. And it was quite distinctive, the difference in time of the heartbeat falling away from kosher shechita versus kosher shechita.
Well, let me take you back to that, because the heartbeat doesn't concern me. Once the animal's unconscious, it doesn't really matter. It's not about the time of death. It's about the process and the cruelty caused, or the pain that's caused as a result of the incision. Okay? Now, the reality is that if the animal is unconscious, once it's unconscious, and we have ways of testing that through external stimuli. You can shine a light in the eye to see if the iris responds. How do we tell if someone's unconscious today? Is you open up their eyes and see if the iris responds. That's one way of showing. So the concept of pain is measured by the person's state of consciousness. In order to be conscious, you need your brain.